we want to say thank you to Dr. Andrea Cook. She is the president, as many of you know, for Warner Pacific University. We know that Andrea's life has, as so many universities, your lives have just turned upside down in the last few weeks, and we're your home church, so we've been thinking of you and praying for you. And
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Having known you personally, I know that you have a great deal of care and concern for your students. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What's been some of your greatest concerns as this has unfolded?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that we're so mindful of is the backgrounds of our students, their particular situations. For a lot of our students, we are home. We are home for them. Many of our students are both food and housing at risk, you know, and so for them, if they don't have a place to stay on campus, then that puts them at a huge risk. If they don't have the food provided through our dining services, then they're at risk. And I think that's a big question for them: is, you know, am I going to have a place? And for many of them, going home is not an option.
Okay.
And so they're very insecure when it comes to food and housing and financially. And so many of them rely on their work study on campus to help pay for just their personal expenses and life generally. I think another piece that is something that we recognize too is that when we think about who our students are in this generation, they've not really been affected by something like this.
Okay.
You know, you look at the history of our world, and we have not, in the last 10 years, had any really substantial disruption. We really haven't. We've had elections or different things like that that have caused some disruption, but nothing that is so sweeping and so significant. And you know, for a lot of our students, and just the moment that they are in life, this disruption and the angst that comes out of it is really challenging for them to address. And so we're thinking about how do we keep providing the counseling services and the support services that they rely upon to keep moving forward in their lives. And you know, we have services that are very, very active throughout the academic year, and how do we now deliver those, continue to deliver those in a way that students will access them and feel like they're meeting their needs. And so it's all of those kinds of things that come into play.
Those are huge.
They're
so
huge.
Thanks for helping us understand that a little bit better. So let me ask you, now, are your kids, your students, I'm sorry, staying on campus?
Some are.
Okay.
Some are.
Great.
We have about 45 students still in residence. Many have gone home, and we called spring break a week early.
Okay.
We started spring break on the 16th. We did that because we felt like it was really critical to give our faculty an opportunity to spend a significant amount of time preparing for going online.
Sure.
And so we did an extended spring break, which has been really a good thing. And most students left during that first week and are still gone. We'll see what happens when the 30th rolls around.
Okay.
We are moving entirely online, and so we have some students who don't have access to internet or may not have a computer. We have students for whom their smartphone is their technology. And some of them have purchased a keyboard and do their papers on their smartphone because that's what they have. And so having access to internet, having access to computers on campus is really key. So we're trying to keep all of those services going so that students have access to those things.
So Andrea, and maybe this isn't possible, but is there, you know, for those of us with extra technology and hardware, possible? Or?
You know, I have taken in 2 old phones this last week, and because we had folks that needed some kind of technology. So I took in 2 of my old phones that I'm not using anymore, and they're being put to use. And so we have students that just don't have. And so that's a reality that they face.
Okay, I don't want you to get inundated. So as people say, I've got this, I've got that. do you want us to try to gather up some here that could be?
Yeah, if there's something, if there are things that are fairly recent models and have good good ability to connectivity to the internet and to we put all of our courses into our MyWP, which is available online to students so that they can do it, their coursework there. But it's really being able to access the internet to get into our system to be able to do those kinds of things. So,
okay, so internet connectivity is key.
Right.
Don't bother if it's not.
Right, exactly.
Okay. How else would you instruct? How can we pray? How could we practically help now, students?
Yeah, I think for students, praying for them for the angst that they're feeling.
Okay.
I was driving up the hill today on my way in, and sorry.
It's okay. We're all emotional at this time.
Saw a student whose life was so messed up when he came to Warner and is doing so well. And I just thought, oh, hold him.
Keep it up, exactly.
Hold him in this time.
Yes, definitely. Great instructive to pray. Yeah. I know we've been thinking the same thing around here as far as people who rely on their support groups.
Absolutely.
And right now, just praying that God would keep them steady. And so we will pull the students into that kind of prayer.
Yeah, I think the reality is that we serve students who come from oftentimes really challenging backgrounds. And so just a lot of them don't have a net of support other than what they get at the institution.
At the school, right.
And so now they won't have contact with faculty daily.
Yeah.
They won't have contact with, we have our residential staff in place, they'll be there. But some of those pieces of support and care are not accessible to them in the same way. So we're trying to think about how do we step into that and create opportunity for that along the way.
Okay, well, thank you for the work you're doing in that way. We'll chat more offline and see if there's other ways that churches could support you in that. Andrea, are you seeing any positives come from the university's community in the midst of all of this?
I think, it's so interesting. I said to one of our new vice presidents, I said, the thing is, you can't let any crisis go unused.
Exactly.
You have to see this moment and say, what is happening here? How do we engage this well? How do we think about it well? How do we understand who we are as a people and how we operate as a community? It's been remarkable to see faculty who, some of them are just new to online learning, and how a team of faculty's come together to spend 5 days of just training faculty to get up to speed, and then our IT staff who's deployed all kinds of technology to make sure that people can work from home. I think we'll have almost I think about an 89% or so of our folks working from home, and that's a huge undertaking in a very short amount of time. And to recognize that people have really uneven technology as employees, and to try and get that all to sing together and work together so that actually we're getting work done. And then just it's created some really good conversations about how we do work. For example, on Friday we have a monthly employee meeting, and it was scheduled. It was scheduled for this past Friday, and I thought, boy, do we do this? And I thought, well, we're going to try. And so we did a Zoom, and I had to smile because 98 people joined the Zoom. When we have in face-to-face, in-person meetings, we get about 60.
Oh.
And so we had a really great turnout, and people were just glad to be together, even virtually, and sharing. The chat was open, and so people were sharing comments with one another as we shared good news and thanked various parts of the organization for all the work they were doing. So it's just realizing that there are ways that we can have community that may not feel the same, but still, nonetheless, our community.
Those are great things to hear. So I hear that you're seeing collaboration.
Absolutely.
You're seeing more conversation going on. So thanks for sharing those aspects too. I know that, as always, you're not just focused on, I know that Warner is your top priority, but you're always busy nationally as well, and locally with other universities. You've been asked by national organizations to write some things and to communicate with lawmakers for the sake of universities. Can you give us a little insight there?
Well, it's an interesting time because, we are all, higher education is in such a disrupted place, just generally before this happened, from the standpoint of just what's happening with the college-going population and funding and lots of different things. And so this just adds another huge piece. And so particularly as it relates to our students, but also to our institutions, there are real challenges with this as far as the financial side of things and what it means when suddenly for us, for example, we start classes all the time in our adult degree program. Well, people are not real focused on going to school right now. Well, what does that mean for us in these next several months, as we probably won't be starting some of the classes that we had budgeted for income. But then also just to think about the larger issues of what happens for students as far as not being able to complete their work, or concerns over repaying loans, or concerns about will they be able to actually finish the semester online? Is that a viable option for all students? And so over this weekend, I spent a part of my time writing letters and text messages and different forms of communication to our senators and our representatives about the needs for our state, but then also how that translates into the needs across the nation. And we have a system of higher education that we believe really contributes to the economic health of our nation. And so what happens when institutions are put into this kind of situation? And it's recognized, we recognize that it has an impact on lots of employees and the economy generally, but also we have to advocate for our particular role in the economy and in the nation. So,
well, thank you for the energy you're pouring into Be a Voice, because I know it's taking a lot of extra time and effort and energy. So, and that just kind of brings me to my next question, Andrea. In times like this, when everything is upended and a full life is bumped up to a whole new level of full, I'm going to ask you that famous Barbara Brown Taylor question. What are you personally doing to stay sane?
Yeah, for me, it's spending time getting my walks in. I haven't. It's been more challenging, honestly, in this season, because it just seems like the work of getting the processes and information out to people kind of washes into the full day and evening. And so that's been harder, but I try to make sure I do that. And then just to touch base with family and friends and over the phone in different ways like that.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm going to encourage you, get your walks in. Okay. I know the hours are just gone. They just disappear.
And I think, it's interesting too in this season of my life, because I'm thinking about the next, and so that's kind of an interesting process too, to have, to try and take the time to begin thinking about those kinds of things.
And I think we're all aware of that. What a strange thing at the end of your tenure at Warner, to be experiencing this social distancing moment. This just doesn't feel right, because there's so many people who, want to give you a big hug and shake your hand and have close contact with you and thank you for your years of service to us. So, I don't know what to say about that other than none of us like it. So
it's a weird moment. I was telling somebody the other day, I could have never imagined that this would be my last semester out of 43 years of working in higher education, and that it would be without students on campus or without faculty around. And so it's very, very strange.
It must be. And I'm going to trust that for some reason that these last few months, it's going to grab a hold of your gift set and your insight and then use it in a broader way than if life was going on as normal.
It's interesting. We have a couple new vice presidents this year, and one of them said, "How are you doing with this?" And I said, "You know what? This is where my brain kicks in and just says, this is what we've got to do. Let's put it together. Let's make it happen." And so I'm grateful for those gifts that God has given me over time to just be a person who can think through and manage all the intricacies of it. I was talking to one of our folks today, and he said, "Boy, we're really prepared." And I said, "Well, it's that thing of we've got to be looking around the corner."
Yes.
And he said, "We've been ready every step along the way." And I said, "That's just the work we have to do to not be caught by surprise."
Well, thank you for doing that and being who you are in this place at this time. Right before we started interviewing, we were talking a little bit about moments in history that have totally changed the future.
Absolutely.
We were chatting a little bit about Oberammergau. Remind us of that story, Andrea.
Well, I was telling Denise that I visited Oberammergau 20 years ago in 2000, and just reminded me was thinking of this the other day, of the Black Plague and that moment in history where Europe was devastated by this plague that just overtook the whole community. And here this little town prayed for deliverance and asked God to deliver them. And in recognition of that, since then, they have done the Passion Play to honor God and touch millions of people for Christ. And so it's pretty remarkable to see that story in that little village and how this kind of crisis and back in many years ago, hundreds of years ago, has shaped and lived on as a testament to God's care and deliverance in a really awful situation.
Yes, well said. Thank you for sharing that, and we want to thank you and know that you are in our prayers continually. And
thank you.
As are the students.
Thanks.
So thanks for your time.
Absolutely.